Lesson 18, Vishuddhi Chakra. In the word Vishuddhi, you see the word Sodhana, which means purifying, to purify. This chakra is at the level of the throat, and it is considered to be the center that is inherently Satvic, inherently harmonious. The other chakras are inherently unstable, inherently disharmonious. But you see, when you look at the symbolism, although for non-Indian people we do not understand the symbols, the characters that are written in the petals, but Muladhara chakra has 4 petals, then the next chakra has 6 petals, the next chakra has 8 petals, this chakra has 16 petals. Each petal has a character, a Sanskrit character. In the 4 lower chakras, all these characters are consonants, while in the throat chakra, each petal contains a vowel. Now, the story goes that vowels carry sound and are harmonious, representing the inherent harmony of this chakra, while the consonants, according to this theory, impair the harmony of the vowels, breaking their energy flow. So consonants are considered to be impure, vowels are considered to be pure. Practically this has not so much meaning, but theoretically it gives a clear distinction between the lower 4 chakras and the throat chakra. The color is interesting. We talked about this last week because it's important and it is something that really concerns me personally. The color is blue, and it's a color that practically everybody feels some attraction to, because this chakra is responsible for expression, not only verbal expression but also body language, all kinds of expression in all its forms, basically. And our thoughts, feelings, emotions are so complex that it's never possible to accurately express those. Because of that, we will always have some issue on the level of the throat chakra. The reason why most people has at least some attraction to the color blue is because blue harmonizes, adds to the harmonization of the throat chakra. It's also, I mentioned banks and insurance companies, they generally use blue or green, which is the color of the heart, in their marketing materials. The Vishuddhi is also called the fountain of eternal youth. That means that theoretically there is the possibility for people to become immortal, and you find this back in stories. In the Netherlands, when somebody asks how old is this, and something is very old, we habitually say it's as old as Methuselah. Methuselah is a character in the Bible that is immensely old. But there are other examples in the Bible in the form of Abraham and Sarah, who were in their 900s when they had a child. Of course, the Bible, like any other old book, spiritual book, is mostly written in symbolical language. So it doesn't mean that people necessarily actually became 900 years old, but it does mean that people with harmony in this chakra did become considerably older than the average kind of people living in that age. It was rare in that time that people got much older than 30, 40 years. And there are examples of people that got in the 70s and 80s, and that was just very rare. These days it's very common. I have to mention, I forgot with the heart chakra, because in the heart chakra you have something similar, where if you read the handout, you see that there's written, that I wrote there, that harmony in the heart chakra theoretically allows people to live without air. Now, if you meditate, if you wear a smartwatch, you can see that when you meditate, not only does your heart rate go down considerably, but also your breath rate reduces considerably. There are yogis, especially traditional yogis, Indian yogis, who, to establish the quality of their development, they will lower all their biological functions, they lower their heart rate, and they have themselves buried. Sometimes for weeks, sometimes even for months. Now this may sound impossible. For most people it is impossible, but they have developed such high level of control, even up to the autonomous nervous system, that they can control their biological functions in ways that we can't, that I can't, and most people can't. I've never even pursued to even try to get to something like that. But what they're doing is basically hibernating, like certain rodents and bears go into hibernation during the winter months. They do that naturally, instinctively. A human being, if you pursue the control, you can indeed get to the point that you can also hibernate, basically. But if you don't even pursue to lower your organic functions, your biological functions, you do clearly notice when you meditate that your heart rate goes down considerably and your breath rate reduces considerably.
Yeah, you can measure it actually.
Yeah, these days with the smartphone and smartwatch.
It's funny.
Yeah. Technology is exploding. Just amazing. All right. The subtle element is ether, and you see in between brackets sound. Why? Because in the Netherlands we use the word ether very regularly. But I noticed throughout the years that for native English speakers, ether is a very unknown, unfamiliar concept. But in the Netherlands, when you listen to the radio, the DJ will very often announce that they are bringing music through the ether. They are coming into the living room through the ether. And ether is thinner than air, so it's not air. The ether is what carries the sound waves, and that is why DJs say we are coming into your living room through the ether. So ether carries sound. Of course, now we have optic fiber cables with the internet and everything. Almost everything comes underground through the cables. But when I was younger, every house had an antenna. And that antenna would catch the sound waves that come through the ether from Hilversum, where the radio stations are all located. So that is what ether is, just for clarification. The subtle vehicle of action is speech. The subtle organ of perception is hearing, your ears. The subtle energy is Vijnana Prana, the color blue, and the mantra Ham. Because normal human beings fluctuate between tamas and rajas, we find it very difficult to undergo silence. That sounds strange. Many people will say, I actually enjoy silence. But many people, subconsciously, when confronted with prolonged periods of silence, they become very restless. You find this back in various aspects. I've managed yoga studios, hired teachers. All those teachers would use music, and they would talk a lot in the class. Even during meditation they will talk, and they will say, that's guided meditation. But what I found is that people are scared of silence. They are scared to be in a class with students, a class that they are leading, and silence falls. Because they then become self-conscious and have a feeling that everybody is looking at them, all the members are looking at them, and they just have this instinctive feeling that they must do something at least, or they must engage, or they must. And so they talk a lot about muscles, about joints, about the medical aspects or effects, the healing effects of the exercises, and what have you. And even to the point that they talk throughout the meditation. And always music. This phenomenon is explained by what we are learning here about the throat chakra. This concept is being used to punish people. In the prison system in Europe, there is no torture, but when you misbehave or go against the prison system, go against the rules, they will put you in an isolation cell for a week. And if you don't improve, for extended periods of time. It is a subtle form of torture that some people can handle. I would be happy. Not happy is not the right word. I wouldn't be bothered by because I'm very good on my own and in silence, listening to nada and contemplating, and it's just a natural way for me to function. I am the opposite. I'm disturbed by noise, by unstable, noisy, active situation. Just distract me, cause me to feel unstable. I'd rather be in a quiet situation, but most people are not, and as a result, it can be used as a punishment. When I was young, we had this phenomenon in Europe of domestic terrorism. In Germany, you had the Rote Armee-Fraktion, RAF. In Italy, you had the Red Army Brigades, all Red Army Brigades. Japan also had Red Army Brigades. It was all around the same time. And what they did, they were highly educated people, university educated people, who were against the system. And they funded themselves by robbing banks, but also by kidnapping captains of industry, CEOs of multinational companies. And they would ask for huge ransom. And they killed politicians. They have killed also captains of industry for whom the ransoms were not paid. They were very smart, highly educated, very smart, very intelligent in the way they went about their things. But at some point, the governments of the respective countries became more and more skillful at tracing them and eventually coming up with proof of their crimes and putting them in jail. And because their crimes were so abhorrent, so disgusting, really, torturing people, killing people, cutting off people's fingers or ears to prove that they had kidnapped them so that they could get the ransoms. The authorities were not, on friendly terms with them. They were special category of criminals that, because we have all signed the declaration of the UN to not torture people, they were basically tortured, punished by putting them in total isolation, totally padded cells where no sound from the outside can come in, and just keeping them in total isolation for extended periods of time. Because of the throat chakra, the need for stimulation in the form of sound, it can turn into a means of torture, withholding that from people. Opening up of the center leads to greater serenity, increase in endurance, and growing insight and wisdom. The center is especially active between the ages of 29 and 35. It is the time in our lives that we settle down. I forgot to mention with the heart chakra that the time that the developmental stage is between 22 and 28, that is the time of idealism and our great love. You can see this back. Huh? The Manipura chakra is between 15 and 21. That is the time of rebellion. That is when people riot in the streets. That is where the violent rioting comes from. In Paris, in Amsterdam, recently or currently in the West Bank, in Israel, in Jerusalem. Those are young people doing the rioting. The people in the next developmental stage, generally they protest peacefully, and they are on the barricades for ideological purposes, not for the excitement of the rioting, which younger people do, but for ideological purposes, intellectual and ideological purposes. So what you see, what I have clearly seen in Amsterdam, is that the people that rioted in the early 70s, then as university students protested government policies, they ended up becoming the policymakers. Why? In that stage, between 22 and 28, they were in their stage of ideology, but they leave that behind in the next stage, and then they start to be concerned about their future, settling down, the stage between 29 and 35. So the same people that protested the government become the government, and other people's protesting against them in the next decade. Very interesting observation. You know that there is a link from the ears to the throat, right? You know that. In Dutch it's called the tube. What is the word in English? Tube of Eustachius. The Dutch word, the medical term is the tube of Eustachius. So the function of the throat chakra is hearing, but also balance and orientation. Within the ear, inside the ear, there is the organ that is responsible for balancing, physically balancing. Not mentally, but physically balancing. So it's related to the throat chakra, because hearing is a function of the throat. Vyana prana, the typical energy associated with this chakra, is what we also know as the phenomenon of ghost. You know the ghost stories? When people die, ghosts are in fact energy, vibration of the spirit that has been in that place. So ghost stories generally are about old buildings where when people go there, they have a sense that there is a presence that they cannot actually see or cannot perceive with their gross senses. So many people think ghost stories, that is for children or is nonsense. But it is a subtle phenomenon that can be explained by the throat chakra and Vyana prana. When a person dies, you have this stage of ascendance. When Jesus Christ died, his spirit ascended out of his body into heaven. We talked a little bit about this before. The physical body is temporary, but spirit is eternal. So spirit does ascend, leave the body after the physical body dies, and at some point in time, determined by karma, it will then take possession of another physical body. When you die in very disharmonious circumstances, your spirit will reincarnate very soon afterwards, within a short time. When you die in peace, while you are in sattva, the time that it takes for your spirit to become disharmonious, restless again, and reincarnate in another body is much, much longer. The theory goes that when you succeed to burn all your karma in this life, and so there is no disharmony left in you when you die, the cycle of reincarnation stops there and you become one of the saints up there. We will talk about that when we read chapter 1 of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. In a practical sense, you can see some interesting phenomena. When there is war, many people die by violence. After every war, there is a baby boom. Another thing is also taking place when countries have a long, extended period of peace, stability. There is a baby drought. Japan, Korea, Europe. Europe maintains its population with immigration, but countries like China, Japan, Korea, who are not open to immigration, they see their population declining. It already started and it will accelerate to very high levels. Demographers explain this phenomenon that we don't want to have children anymore. It is too expensive to educate our children. But when people are peaceful, they don't have that restlessness to procreate. Even Japan, research has shown that in Japan there are many people in their 20s and 30s who are not interested in sex. It is the time that you're full of hormones, that there is this drive sexually, erotically, and they just, when asked about it, they're just totally not interested. They're very comfortable on their own with their hobbies and not interested in socializing and mingling and everything that dating entails. They just think it's just bothering and distracting. They're just totally in peace and totally fine with everything. A natural environment is very stimulating to harmony. It is the reason why people enjoy going out of the city to the forest, to the mountains, to the beach, because the city in itself is very disharmonious, and it has a direct effect on the inhabitants living in the city. You can clearly see when you're in the city, you walk in the street, you see many dark faces, tense faces. You go to the countryside and the picture completely changes. You see all smiles for no other reason than just being. Because the countryside is much more harmonious, so people are inherently much more harmonious. And while they have maybe much less than the busy people in the big cities, they are much happier than those people in the cities. Concrete, asphalt, everything that our world in the city is built of is disharmonious. I felt this very clearly when in 2007, 2008, I went to a retreat in the mountains, somewhere in central Korea, in the winter. And because it was winter, it was very quiet there. There was just a very small community there. But I stayed for a week in a wooden cabin. It was completely made out of natural materials, mainly wood. Even the foundation was wood. And there was a time that I was quite busy, and it just had such an amazing influence on me. And coming back to the city, I could just very clearly feel the difference between living in the city, going to the retreat, and going back to the city again. And a very interesting phenomenon that happened as a result of this auspicious effect that living in the wooden cabin in the mountains had on me, is that I ate and slept all day. Normally, if I sleep in the day, I can't really sleep at night or find it difficult to fall asleep. But what I did there was I ate and slept. And I ate and I slept. And it felt so good. I was just restoring. I was just healing. It was just amazing experience. And it made me kind of, if ever I have a chance that I can build my own house, I want to build a house entirely out of wood. Don't know if that's ever going to happen. It's not a priority, but if ever the chance arises, that is what I want to do, based on that experience. It was so impressive. Also, interesting phenomenon that that needs to be explained is the impact that noise has on people because of the throat chakra. Criminals, thieves, burglars, they don't want to be seen when they commit their crimes. So what do? They go out at night They wear dark clothes, and they try to remain out of sight. Cars and houses are equipped with burglar alarms. And what do those alarms do? They make a lot of noise. And the incredible noise that they make when the car is broken open or the house is being invaded, the thief, the criminal working in silence, in the dark, is suddenly very violently disrupted and disoriented and will start running like crazy to get away. That is how burglar alarm works. And I've seen this in practice. Before I came to Korea, I worked for a company that does maintenance to interior plants. Many people don't realize, but big companies have a budget for interior plants. Because every time they try to take care of their plants by themselves, they die. That is why you see such beautiful plants in hospitals, in banks, in big office buildings, banks, insurance companies, what have you. I did that kind of work, taking care of plants. And to do that, my responsibility was the northern province of the Netherlands. So I would drive around from company to company and take care of the plants once a month, and other companies every 3 months. But at some point I was in a parking garage, underground parking garage, and I was doing my administration before moving on to the next customer. And while I was doing my administration, I saw people acting suspiciously. And I put away my things, and I thought, this is going to be interesting. I wanted to see what they were up to. I knew that they were up to no good. Let's say it like that. And sure enough, at some point they forced the lock of a car and they opened the door. And the moment they opened the door, it started blaring out, bam, bam, bam. What happened then is the guy who opened the door, he jolted and he ran 3 rounds around the car before he found the way to the exit of the parking lot. He was so disoriented. It was like a comedy, but serious stuff really. 3 rounds around the car before he finally found his way to the exit. That is the shock that noise gives to Vijnana Prana, basically. About the ghost stories, I didn't finish that piece. When a person dies premature, often through violence or deep suffering as a result of disease, the moment that the person dies, the spirit is very restless. Now the story goes, when the spirit is very restless, it doesn't ascend. It stays behind. And that is where the haunted house comes from, or the haunted spot in the forest. If somebody has died in a certain spot through violence or great suffering as a result of disease, the physical body dies, but the spirit remains behind. Now you have these Dracula movies and you have these horror movies where the person who is concerned with a haunted spot calls in what do you call it? What do you call such a person that drives out the evil spirits, the ghost? Anyway. Ghostbuster. Yeah. Ghostbuster. No, it has a yeah, X thingus.
Exorcist. An exorcist.
Yes, exorcist. You call in the exorcist, and the exorcist will come with a bag full of ritual things and tools and what have you.
Well, holy water and prayer.
Yeah, and maybe a silver nail and a hammer.
No,
but this is interesting. What they do is a ritual. For the people that look what they do, it has to look like something. But the ritual is deceptive, is deceiving. Because it's not the ritual that makes the ghost go away. The restless ghost goes away because the person, a real exorcist is like a yogi, possesses sattva. Like a Reiki master can give harmonious energy to a patient to heal, an exorcist has the ability to bring the spirit, the restless ghost, to ease, to harmony, allowing that spirit then finally to ascend, to go up. And that frees the spot from its ghost. It's not a haunted place anymore. All related to the throat chakra and the phenomenon of ghost.
To the breath. Like when we die, we exhale, and in that exhalation we take...
The last breath?
The last breath takes it out, apparently. The first breath takes it in. It's in the Bible, right?
Yeah, right.
That's why God, when God creates the humans, He inhales into them.
Yeah, but that is symbolism.
No, of course, I'm not saying it's
yeah.
but I'm just saying the exorcist works with the same power, with that restlessness that stays there. It just calms down the spirit so it can go.
Yeah, what the exorcist does is basically be in a meditative mood and connect with the spirit and make the spirit comfortable so that it finally feels allowed to rise up. My yoga teacher took us to a cemetery where there were many war victims, and he had this kind of fetish, if you can call it. He would stand in front of a grave and feel whether the deceased individual would be at peace or not. And if not at peace, he would make them at peace. That's very interesting to see, just an anecdote.
But it's like the reason why so many people don't go to Itaewon anymore. And if you go to that alley, because all these people were too young to die,
yeah,
you can feel or sense at least the pain.
Yeah, the people who are sensitive to it, yeah, definitely, totally. And then many still after so many months, many businesses are suffering because of that, or even going out of business. Yeah.
So people who believe in ghosts don't work there.
Well, more than 150 people died there very prematurely, undergoing a lot of suffering, being trampled and squashed and what have you. So I was shocked. I know that alley is very small and short. 150 people, does it even fit in there? But apparently there were a lot more than that. So yeah, a lot of restlessness apparently there. I haven't been there ever.
No.
Since.
You should. You might feel something.
Yeah, just as an experiment to feel.
Yeah, you will see some monks sometimes, especially on the weekend.
Yeah.
Praying.
Yeah. It's to appease the restless spirits. Yeah. Yeah, it all makes sense, huh? We grow up in this world and we see these kind of things and we don't make the connections, but it's very interesting how all these things actually make sense and connect based on ancient insights, basically. Good. Questions? Exercises, by the way, exercises that stimulate throat chakra and the higher chakras are, of course, shoulder stands and headstands also. The lower chakras are stimulated by leg work. The heart chakra is stimulated by the arms. There are arm balances. Actually, the most advanced poses in yoga are arm balances. It's balancing the throat, stimulation of the throat, balancing element, and strong, intense stimulation of the arms. You don't only have a handstand in yoga, But there are many arm balances with a lotus pose, or they're actually, if they're in the book. If you go towards the end of the book, the most advanced poses really are directly stimulating the heart and the throat, directly, through the intensity of the arms and the balancing element stimulating the throat.
Ron?
Yes?
Is there going to be a point in the course where we tie the way you are doing now with some asanas and some of the chakras, or because this is, maybe I'm wrong, but I think in written, maybe it's the first time that I see it in the handouts that really tied in some recommended movements or sort of asanas to stimulate the chakras.
No, I haven't really mentioned it except for today with this chakra. But if you look back at the other handouts, the other chakras, especially
For Manipura as well, we did a little bit, I think it was.
no,
But for the other side, not that clear.
with some of the chakras there is mentioned which particular asanas will stimulate the chakras, but it's fairly simple. Muladhara chakra is stimulated by Muladhara chakra is stimulated by spreading the feet. Svadhisthana chakra is stimulated by bending at the hips, any forward bend. And Manipura chakra is stimulated by bending one or both of the legs. Now you see with the triangle poses and the warrior poses that they're actually a combination of 2 or 3 of these elements, because there is spreading of the feet, then there is a tilt of the pelvis either forward or to the side. And with the more intense poses, the warrior poses and the extended flank pose, you bend one leg also. And there you have all 3 the lower chakras stimulated. The heart is stimulated through the hands, the arms. We haven't done any. You use your arms in the shoulder stand when you support your back, but we will soon have the cobra pose, and there are poses where you the plank pose, where you intensely use the arms. The throat is shoulder stand mainly, and Ajna chakra and crown chakra is headstands. And also remember, balancing element, in the tree pose, for example, balancing element is stimulating the throat chakra. So you work in your lower body, stimulating lower chakras, generating energy. By adding the balancing element, you make that energy rise up. All right, let's have a short break.
Thank you.